everybody seeing my slide? If I can get a thumbs up. Yep. And it looks like it's in presentation mode. Yes. Great. Wonderful. All right. So this webinar series is being put on by the Minnesota Zero Waste Coalition. And we're like, yeah, I mean, obviously a coalition of a lot of different organizations, environmental organizations, individuals, businesses like Eureka Recycling, and my organization, which is a industry association for e-waste recyclers. So lots of folks from different areas coming together to work together towards zero waste. And really, we are a movement that centers the voices of frontline communities. We're in solidarity with the incinerator shutdown movement as well. And we really try to center the voices of folks that are the most directly impacted by waste and the pollution caused by our waste. So that's the Minnesota Zero Waste Coalition. Just gonna make my screen bigger here. There we go. And so we are working on a bill for electronic waste collection, and it's something that we brought to the legislature last year, and we got pretty far. We successfully went through 4 different committees, and we were missing just 1 vote in the Minnesota Senate. So we did not pass the bill last year. We're bringing it back this year. And I actually just got new language from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, who's writing or drafting the bill for us this year. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of an update of what's in that language and kind of compare it to the current system that we have in place that was enacted in 2007. And yeah, that's kind of that's where we're at in kind of the process. So for today, I want to talk about why 100% collection. Why are we working on that specifically, our collection rates, and why are we doing it the way that we're doing it? And what does the bill do? What's in the language? And how is it going to bring about higher collection rates of this waste stream? And then just talk a little bit about how individuals like yourselves can get involved and help get this across the finish line. Does that sound good to everybody? Great. Got some nods. All right, so why 100% collection? So in the state of Minnesota, we generate about 266 million pounds of electronic waste. So, and I'm defining that as really anything with a battery, a cord, or a circuit board. And we only collect about 20% of it. So for recycling, sorry. The rest of it is ending up in either landfills, incinerators, or like we talked about earlier, in people's drawers and basements. So fairly low collection rates for this material. And so there's kind of, a low hanging fruit for the state. It's something that we could improve pretty easily. So when e-waste isn't recycled properly, if it's thrown into our landfills or our incinerators, the material that is in that waste is able to come in contact with our bodies one way or another, either through the air, or the soil, or things that we eat, or the water we drink. And there's a lot of toxic material in that waste. For example, though e-waste only makes up about 2% of what's going into our landfills, it does make up 70% of the lead pollution that is present in our landfills. Okay, and Stephanie, I'll just answer your question before I move on. So I'm defining e-waste as anything with a battery, a cord, or a circuit board. And that is at its end of its useful life, right? So if it can't be fixed or used anymore and it's truly broken and is not going to have a use, then it's going to be e-waste. And we are calling the bill, so I'll go back to it, the 100% e-waste collection bill. Actually, I thought I had it here, but I didn't. So 100% collection bill is the name of the bill. Yeah, and feel free to you guys can come off of chat or come off of mute and interrupt me and ask a question, totally fine. Otherwise, in the chat, I'll try to it, but I might miss it. If I miss it, I'll answer it at the end. So when the material, like toxic material from electronic waste, comes in contact with our bodies, it can have a lot of negative effects. A few examples on the screen here, changes in temperament and behavior, decrease in lung function, spontaneous births, stillbirths, and abortions, DNA damage, and decrease in education for the young children or children that were exposed as fetuses. They're especially susceptible to this type of contamination.
Can I ask a question here?
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
A while back, and I haven't heard it for a while, but they were talking about your cell phones by your ears or by your, body parts and how, it would affect you adversely. Is this what we're talking about?
Not exactly.
Okay.
I don't really have an answer for that for if that's accurate or not. But if so, when the material is degrading in a landfill, and it's raining on the landfill, and water is escaping, right? We know that most of our landfills in Minnesota have some leaching of toxic materials like PFAS and other chemicals. And so then it gets into our environment, and then from our environment, it can get into our food, our drinking water, and in the air as well. And in Minnesota, we have 8 different trash incinerators, and so those are directly burning the material, and the material that the toxins can go into the air from there. So that's kind of what we're talking about. When the material isn't, if it's handled like regular trash, that's what happens, right? So you can't handle electronic waste like regular trash, or regular recycling. It needs to be brought to a place that specifically recycles that material safely. Yeah. So again, why can't it go into the regular trash or the recycling? It's very dangerous for electronic waste to go into the trash or the recycling. A lot of e-waste, and increasingly so. I think it's by like 6-fold every year. They're like, or 6%, I think by 6% more e-waste every year has a lithium ion battery in it, if that makes sense. So that kind of in a roundabout way. But lithium ion batteries are becoming more and more prevalent in our electronic waste. And these are very, very volatile. They like to explode and cause fires from the surrounding material. So just some recent pictures up here on the screen from the past couple of years. Fires happening on hauling trucks are very, very dangerous to the workers. They have to dump out that material and put it out. And I've talked to countless workers that at MRFs, material recovery facilities, or the trash haulers, and they tell me that they were not trained to be a firefighter, and this isn't fair. Like this is the scariest part of their job are these lithium ion batteries ending up in their trash. So, and to the right one, the top one is a transfer station from Blaine that burned down in 2018. Oh, are you not able to hear me?
You're cutting in a little sometimes for me.
All right. I'll try to get a little closer to my audio here. There's a transfer station on the right here that burned down in 2018, and that was in Blaine, Minnesota. And then the bottom picture here is the Rice County landfill. And talking to landfill operators, they tell me that fires from batteries that were in electronic devices happen like every day in the landfills, and the same with material recovery facilities. So typical like single stream recycling facilities are experiencing these fires every single day as well. So we really need electronic waste out of our other waste streams, and we need them pulled out ahead of time and handled properly. Another reason we're working on 100% collection is that e-waste is very valuable. We recently conducted a study that showed that just Minnesota's e-waste is worth about $3 billion every year. So the amount that we generate in a year's time has metals in it that are very valuable, right? And if we were able to extract all of those valuable metals and reuse them, those metals would be worth $3 billion. So there's a lot of things that we need to do in order to recover those metals. There's a technology challenge. There's a safety challenge, but one of the simplest things that we need to do in order to get there is to actually collect the material and stop burying it and burning it. So that's one of the reasons why 100% collection is kind of a lowest hanging fruit here. And it's something that we can do at a state level, whereas some of these other things are not necessarily as easy to tackle from this scale. And if you're interested, these are some of the top metals by value that are in Minnesota's electronic waste stream every year. So we have things like platinum, palladium, gold, copper, tin, lithium, iron, aluminum, silver. These are things that you'll hear mentioned a lot in when people are talking about the energy transition and renewable energy technology. It's stuff that we really need in order to build important products for energy transition, like solar panels and electric vehicles and geothermal technology. So some really important metals that are going into the trash right now, and we're trying to keep them from going in the trash. And this is just basically what I just said. There's lots of things we need to do in order to get these metals out and reused. We need both repairable and recyclable design. We need fewer cycle. We need to invest in efficiently extract all of it. And we need to ultimately reduce our consumption and not buy things that we don't need. But 100% collection is, again, kind of a lowest hanging fruit, something that we can work on today at a state level. And we have a pretty comprehensive solution. So what does the 100% e-waste collection bill do? I'm just going to go through these points. And again, feel free to stop me as I kind of compare and contrast the current system with what we're trying to replace. So there was a bill passed in 2007 that was aimed at helping to fund our electronic waste collection system. Because otherwise it's basically up to private collectors to try to find out how to do it and still make a profit and keep their lights on. Or it's up to our counties and they're going to be using our tax dollars. And they're chronically underfunded programs for collecting and processing this material. So one of the biggest barriers truly is the cost of collection. And so that's what the main thing that we're addressing with this bill. And it was what the 2007 program tried to address. So in the 2007 program, basically what it did was said, okay, producers, you need to chip in and pay for some of the collection of electronic waste. But what that actually looked like in practice was that producers paid for part of the cost per pound of some of the material. And so that was somewhere around 30 cents per pound, which was not the full cost. The full cost is more around $1 per pound, $1.18 per pound. So it didn't fully cover the cost of each pound that it was paying for. And it wasn't paying for all the pounds. So it was paying for CRT TVs or tube TVs, those old kind of bubble-like looking TVs, if you know what those are. Yeah. So it was paying for those to be collected. It was paying for things with screens and fax machines. So a fairly limited list, and it wasn't even within those definitions, it wasn't covering all of the material. The producers had a certain number of credits that they had to comply with and pay for each year. So it's partially funding about 20 million pounds of collection each year. And if you remember from the very first slide, we have 266 million pounds per year generated in Minnesota. So it's mainly the problem with the 2007 bill is that it really isn't to scale. It's not to the scale of the problem that we have on our hands. So with the 100% collection bill that we're bringing in, we are defining e-waste or defining a covered electronic product differently. So we are going to say that producers need to fully fund the per pound collection of anything with a cord or a battery. And so that is a much, much broader definition and will get us much, much closer to this goal of 100%. Is that making sense so far? I just want to check in with folks. Couple nods. Okay. And okay, and then so another difference here is that in 2007 program, there was no mandatory collection. So the registered collection points, there wasn't anything that the MPCA said you need to, at minimum, collect these items. There wasn't anything like that. So the result is that every county and every city that you might live in across Minnesota is going to be different. So for example, when my aunt calls me from St. Louis County and says, "What should I do with my printer?" I don't know, right? I can't tell her because it's going to be different than me. I'm in Ramsey County, so I'm going to have a different system than she will. Mike, go ahead.
So there are some things.
I'm not hearing you. I don't know if people are.
Can you hear me? No?
Maybe try again. Oh, now you're muted.
How about that? Okay.
Sorry.
Um,
Maybe you can put your question in the chat. I was hearing you fine before, but for some reason now it's cutting out. If you put your question in the chat, I'll try to answer it. But yeah, so every county and state is different. It's different how much you're going to pay when you go to drop off your device, and what they accept is different as well. So with this new 100% collection bill, we are saying that if you are a registered collector, you need to at minimum collect everything, the battery, and anything that's a computer or has a screen. And then there's an optional collection list. But they are allowed to and will get reimbursed for collecting that broad 100% definition, which is anything with a battery or a cord. So, and they will be paid the full amount per pound. So there's actually an economic incentive to collect all the material. So the result is that it's going to be a lot more consistent across the counties. Depending on where you live in Minnesota, you will have access to basically universal free collection of all devices with batteries and cords. Whereas before, every county had a different list of what they would accept from you. Okay, so Mike, some things like a fan are mostly plastic. Is it worth it? This is a very complicated question, but I think it's worth taking a second to talk about it. So this is something we debate a lot, and the truth of the matter is we don't exactly have the carbon footprint data of sending a fan to, for example, from Hennepin County to St. Cloud to get shredded and recycled. So we don't know exactly if sending that fan specifically that many miles is worth it in the carbon footprint numbers. But we do know that if the making lists of things that you can and can't bring makes it very, very difficult to educate the public. So if you say, we'll take your vacuum cleaner, but we won't take your fan, and we'll take your computer, but we won't take your smoke detector, for example, then that really hurts the ability to educate the public about what they can and can't recycle. And so we believe that making this broad definition has a lot of other positive effects on the program, and getting bogged down in the details about which items are worth it, quote unquote, to recycle or not, economically or carbon footprint wise, is a worthwhile conversation. But we think that it's really, really important to make this definition anything with a battery or a cord, because that is how you make it much easier to educate the public. So, but that's definitely something that we've talked about a lot, Mike. So that's a good question. So we have our broad definition. We have mandatory collection of optional collection with reimbursement of anything with a battery or a cord. In the 2007 program, there was no educational component. And in this new bill, there is an educational component. The product responsibility organization that will be running this program is responsible for educating all Minnesotans how the program works and how they can find the nearest collection site. And they have to maintain a website where people can look up where their nearest collection site is, what they can bring, and what the experience is going to be like. In the 2007 program, they did not address batteries. Batteries were not covered, and they did not do anything about battery chemistries or battery recycling. In this new program, they are not only covering cost of battery collection, but also be labeled with their chemistry. Did I cut out again? Deborah? Okay, how about now?
Now you're good. It's like
Okay,
when you move somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right, well, thanks for letting me know. I'm watching you.
Sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. Because then I can pause for a second. So this is requiring all batteries that are sold in Minnesota to be labeled with their chemistry and also have information about how to properly recycle them. And this is really something that's really, really important because people do not know what their battery chemistries are. We just did a survey at the state fair of 1,000 people, and we kind of quizzed them on this. And people don't know their battery chemistries, and they also don't know what to do with their batteries. So this educational component is really a big deal, and we think it will help a lot with the public education component. So I'll just stop there because that's what I have as far as updates about what the new program is. So before I go into like what you can do, I just want to stop there because I'm sure there are questions because I could go very far into the weeds in any of these bullet points, but I won't do that unless people really want to know. So yeah, I'll just pause, and if people have questions about what this bill is, what it will do, how it works, happy to answer those now. Okay, so Stephanie, who is the part of the PRO? So the PRO, or the Product Responsibility Organization, is an organization that the MPCA is going to contract with to run this program. And so basically their job is to tell the manufacturers what they have to pay and then reimburse the collectors for the cost of collection. So the collectors, instead of charging Minnesota residents, are going to collect it for free from Minnesota residents, and they will get paid from the PRO. So that's who that is. And Stephanie, as far as who is the PRO, we don't know yet because the MPCA, or the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, is going to send out a request for proposals. And so then different organizations that do this kind of work professionally, they're going to apply. And so some organization will get that job, and it'll be like a contract with the Pollution Control Agency. How expensive will it be to bring this bill? Maybe if you want to come off of mute, do you mean how expensive is the campaign for the bill, or do you mean like the like annual cost of running? I mean, I suppose I can answer both questions. Annual cost of the program. Okay. So we don't have, so there's this thing that they do in the legislature when you introduce a bill, they give you the agency to run that bill. So in our case, it's the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. They give you what's called a fiscal note, and they tell you how much they think it will cost. Probably this program, if it becomes law, it probably won't be very expensive because the most expensive thing to run a program is government employees. If you have to hire more employees, that's what makes a program really expensive. And this program is mostly relying on that organization, the PRO, to run it. And the PRO is paid by the manufacturers. So mostly the costs of this program are going to be funded by the program itself. And so the manufacturers that are paying for the collection costs are also going to be paying for the maintenance of the program. So the fiscal note will probably be pretty small, but I don't have that exact number for you yet. But that's something we'll get within the first few weeks or so of introducing the bill. And session starts in January. So that's when we'll know. Yeah, am I missing? Joshua, maybe you can help me out with the questions in the chat if you're able. I don't know if I'm missing any, but okay, which senators? Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, Maria. You're going down the line.
Okay. So Arlene asked, can you state which senators were a barrier in the last session? So yeah, Senator and Senator Rest.
Maria, can you repeat the first senator? You cut
Yeah,
out a little bit.
Senator Frentz from Mankato. Did you hear me that time? Okay, great. Yeah, Senator Frantz from Mankato and Senator Rest. Those two did not give us our vote, and they were the two DFLers that held out on us. And then we did have Senator Abler, who's a Republican, and he was an author on the bill. So basically, one plus one Republican minus two DFLers meant that we had one vote shy of passing the bill. And Cynthia, you had a question. You want to ask it now? Or did that answer your question?
No, so I was going to ask, what prohibits collectors or collection companies from simply crossing the border, or what prohibits manufacturers from doing that? And my concern is being able to support manufacturing in the state. How does that impact the manufacturers in the state?
Yeah, so manufacturers that are located in the state of Minnesota will not have there won't be any difference between their obligation and the obligation of the other of like multinational manufacturers. There's not going to be any extra burden on our Minnesota manufacturers because it's based on your market share in Minnesota. So for example, if you sell TVs in Minnesota and you're selling 50% of all the TVs that are purchased, then you're going to pay for 50% of the cost of recycling TVs. And so the people that are paying the most are going to be folks like Amazon, Samsung, Lenovo, big multinational companies that sell a lot of material into the state. So smaller manufacturers are going to have a much, much smaller cost. And there's even a cutoff, which I don't have the definition of the cutoff off the top of my head, but there's a cutoff of market share as well. So if you are small enough of a seller into the state of Minnesota, then you'll have no interaction with this program. So for example, if there's a manufacturer here in Minnesota that's manufacturing computers, but they're selling them not in Minnesota, then they wouldn't have any obligation to help pay for this program because it's all based on what you're selling.
Companies like 3M will be hit big.
Well, it is based on their sale into Minnesota. So their sales into other states nothing will be affected. So they're affected the same amount as other manufacturers. And things like medical devices are not included in the program. And I know 3M makes a lot of medical related devices. So those items will not be included. And just to give kind of like a order of magnitude of how much this is affecting kind of the industry or the industry is in the state of Minnesota, the like electronic sales industry is about $4.5 billion a year. And this program is going to cost about $100 million. So it's a percentage, but it's a fairly small percentage of the total like revenue from sales. So it's not the cost of collection is pretty small compared to the profit from this industry. Deborah, did you have a question?
I do, and maybe you've talked about it already and I didn't hear, but I'm wondering what other states have done something like this.
Yeah, there are actually 24 other states that have a program like this.
Oh.
And the main difference from our 100% collection bill and their currently implemented programs is the definition of what is covered. Most other states, some states cover batteries. Most states are focusing on those tube TVs and items with screens. So we'll be the first state to have that comprehensive anything with a battery or a cord definition, but we won't be the first state to be asking producers to pay for collection. This is a pretty that general concept is pretty common at this point. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If I have any other...
Oh, I was gonna say, question from the chat. Did Friends say why he was opposed to the bill?
Yeah. Yeah, so last year, we had, as a component of the bill, we had a fee on certain items. Basically what we call in the industry low grade material. So not computers or things with screens, but kind of the miscellaneous. Like if you think about walking down the Walmart toy aisle, like everything in there that like lights up and makes sound, we had a fee on those items, and that was what was going to fund the collection of those types of um, devices. And Best Buy and Target really didn't like that. They didn't want to have to administer a fee. And so they really pushed back. And Senator Frentz was keen to listen to them and oppose the bill. So this version of the bill does not have that fee, and it's all on the level of the manufacturer. So we won't be interacting with retailers, and so there'll be fewer local businesses that are not happy with this program. So it will hopefully be more successful.
And then another question from the chat, and I think you touched on this a little bit, Maria, but will both national and foreign manufacturers be paying into this?
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be mostly foreign because most of the material is produced by foreign companies. So, and again, it's based on their market share. So, since we're buying mostly material that was produced outside of Minnesota, then those are going to be the manufacturers that are paying the largest share of the cost incurred by the program. And it is online sales as well. So, everything. And I mean, electronics are increasingly being purchased online, so that's very important that online sales are also included.
I can give another question from the chat.
Mhm.
Do you have an idea maybe what the chances that this bill has in this upcoming session?
Yeah, so and this is something I'll get into in a second too, with kind of how people can help out with this. It has a decent chance. The Minnesota House is now split. And so we don't have the DFL does not have a majority in the Minnesota House. And so all that means is we need at least one Republican to vote yes. And we do have several Republicans, about 5 Republicans that we were talking to last session, that said they really liked it, and they wanted to vote for it, but they didn't get the chance to because it got stuck in the Senate. So we'll follow up with those people and ask them if they'd be willing to be co-authors. And if we can get at least one of them to sign on as a co-author of the bill, then the chances are really quite good, because we have resolved the things that Senator Frentz did not like about the bill. So we've hopefully overcome the barrier that we had in the Senate. And now our barrier in the House is just to find one Republican that will support the bill. So I'd say it has a decent chance. Yeah. And it's a bill that's pretty popular in rural Minnesota, just as popular as it is in the urban areas of Minnesota, because really, folks in rural areas are the folks that don't have access to this service. And so if they can have access to it, those are the folks that are the most frustrated by the current system because they have to drive so far, or literally don't have a place to bring their e-waste. So yeah. I can take more questions at the end too, but I'll just go through just briefly what you can do if you are interested in helping helping us get this passed in the 2025 session. I'll just show you briefly one thing you can do now, and something you can continue to do throughout the session that really helps. Oh, I forgot about this. I'll start with this. So we had that survey at the state fair where we surveyed 1,000 people, and they were all across Minnesota, all the different zip codes, and pretty evenly distributed. And the majority of the responses said that they approved of manufacturers paying for the program over the other options that they were given. And the other options were kind of a deposit system where you pay a fee and get paid back, or where you pay a fee like how we had in the previous bill, where there was a fee on electronics and that covered the cost of collection. So, or just other. And people said that they preferred the producer responsibility model, which is that's what we're doing this session. So, all right. So yeah, how can you help? I'm actually gonna. So yeah, I talked about the Minnesota House being split in Mankato. So that's kind of a battleground, if you will. So folks in Mankato or folks that have friends in Mankato, letting them know about this and how they can contact their senator would be great. Would be super helpful. But really, all legislators, all your Minnesota and House and Senate legislators really need to hear that this bill is coming back, and that you like it, right? So if it's something that you want to see passed, let your legislators know. It makes a huge difference. Every time I talk to a senator or representative and they tell me, oh, I have been hearing about this from my constituents, those are the conversations that go the best because they really do respond to what their constituents are telling them. So as a follow-up to this meeting, I'll send out everybody who RSVP'd to this. I'll send out some materials. I can share this fact sheet with you that you can share with your representatives. Excuse me. And it will help you kind of draft a little, like 1 or 2 sentences of why you want them to vote yes on this bill. But I want to show you, just for anybody who has not done this before or has not written to your state level representatives, I just want to show you a really easy way to do that. And that'll just take just a minute to show you. Joshua, are you seeing my like full tab or just the presentation? Like if I go to this?
You can see the full tab.
Okay, great. So there's something called GIS, and how you find it is literally just by typing in Google, find my legislator, Minnesota. So find my legislator, Minnesota, and it'll probably be the first thing that comes up. It's the Minnesota legislature site. You can click on it, add your zip code. I do Cannon Falls zip code here. And the folks that are going to be voting on this bill are the top 2. So if it says MN House, we're going to be making this decision. Anybody that says US, they don't get to vote on this bill because it isn't a federal bill. It's a state bill. So then you pick one of these 2 and you hit contact, and there will be probably an email or a contact form. Some representatives prefer that you use an online contact form, and you can just copy and paste that email. You can either email them separately or together, your senator and your representative, and just let them know, hey, there's this electronics bill that's going to be voted on this session, and I would like you to vote for it. This is something that I care about, and you can tell them why you care about it. You can say as much or as little as you like. Personally, I think the like form factor emails to legislators are not as effective as personal emails, but we will be sending out some form factor email options as well. So you just have to go click, and it'll send out. But for folks who want to send a personal email, I think those are so much better if you're willing to. So find my legislator MN, and you'll find the emails of your Minnesota House and Senate representatives. And you can do that anytime. The session starts in January, so if you want to send a booster email in January, that would be great, but you could do this today or tomorrow, anytime you want to. It's good for them to hear from you about this and know that you care about it. So this is the fact sheet. I'll be sending out in a follow-up email. I'll send you that link to the GIS website and a few key kind of talking points that you can use if you want to, if you're inspired to use my talking points. Otherwise, tell them why you personally care about this. Yeah, and that's what I have for today. So if you want to ask more questions or chat about something else, let me know. Am I missing any? Are there any questions in the chat that I haven't answered yet, Joshua?
Yeah, we have. So, Stephanie would like to know, do you anticipate that the passage of this bill would result in a larger number of collection sites in the state?
Yes, actually, that's another component of this new bill is that there's something called a convenience metric. And so the PRO, Product Responsibility Organization, is responsible for ensuring that no Minnesotan has to drive more than 10 miles or travel more than 10 miles to recycle their electronics. So it will result in more collection options.
Awesome. And then it looks like we have another one. So will this reduce items in the landfill? And also, is plastic a big problem? That might be kind of referring to products that are made with a lot of plastic
Yeah. Yep.
in them.
I mean, I am predicting that our collection rates will go up a lot. If you talk to collectors, they will tell you that if they ever put on an event where they say free collection, they get inundated with material. So that just indicates that, you know, free collection is removing enough barriers for people to finally get around to emptying out their drawer of old electronics. So it'll be hard to tell because there might be an influx at the very beginning and it might table off at some point, but I believe that we'll increase a lot from our 20% collection rates of today. But hard to say exactly. That's a very complex question. And then plastic, yeah, plastic, e-waste plastic is problematic, and that's something that we're committed to continuing to work on. This bill doesn't really address the plastic very much, other than funding the collection and getting it to the right place to get recycled. End markets for e-waste plastic are spotty sometimes, and so there is a chance that some of the plastic will need to end up in the landfill still. But that's something that the MPCA and our organization is really committed to trying to make e-waste plastic more circular and or reduce how much plastic is in our electronic waste. For example, computers with the casing that's aluminum, the aluminum is super, super recyclable and non-toxic, whereas the plastic is less recyclable. So replacing plastic with other material like aluminum in our electronic waste would be very, very helpful. But also removing the toxins. So PFAS and brominated flame retardants in the e-waste plastic really reduce the value of that plastic as a post-market material. So if we were able to reduce how much, and that's something especially on the federal level that would be really, really helpful, is if they were able to reduce how much of those chemicals are in our e-waste plastic, then it would be a lot easier and safer to recycle it. And there'd be more end markets for that material. But like today, we do have HP purchases recycled electronic waste plastic. So there are some end markets for it, and there is some circularity happening. It's not consistent, and sometimes the end markets go away for a short time and come back, and it can be spotty.
I think we have a couple more questions in the chat. So Mike would like to know, can you please repeat how you overcame the objections of Senator Friends and Senator Rest with this new legislation?
Yeah. So in the previous bill, we had a fee on certain items, like toys, for example, electronic toys had a 3% fee on them, and that's how they were going to fund the collection. And this year, everything is funded by producer responsibility. So the company that's making those e-toys is going to be paying for the collection costs, and it won't be a fee that is implemented by retailers. And so what that means is that folks like Best Buy and Target are going to not push back as hard on this bill as they did the previous version of it. And those were the folks that Frentz told me that he was listening to, and he was worried about the things that they brought forward. So with that change, we anticipate Senator Frentz will vote yes for the bill.
Margaret would like to know, how does this relate to vape waste?
Yeah, so here I have to plug in my computer, but I'll answer the question while I do that. So vape waste will also be covered. So the cost of collecting
In a larger number of collection sites in the state.
Yes, actually, that's another component of this new bill, is that there's something called a convenience metric. And so the PRO, Product Responsibility Organization, is responsible for ensuring that no Minnesotan has to drive more than 10 miles or travel more than 10 miles to recycle their electronics. So it will result in more collection options.
Awesome. And then it looks like we have another one. So will this reduce items in the landfill? And also, is plastic a big problem? That might be kind of referring to products that are made with a lot of plastic
Yeah. Yep.
in them.
I mean, I am predicting that our collection rates will go up a lot. If you talk to collectors, they will tell you that if they ever put on an event where they say free collection, they get inundated with material. So that just indicates that, free collection is removing enough barriers for people to finally get around to emptying out their drawer of old electronics. So it'll be hard to tell because there might be an influx at the very beginning and it might table off at some point, but I believe that we'll increase a lot from our 20% collection rates of today. But hard to say exactly. That's a very complex question. And then plastic. Yeah, plastic, e-waste plastic is problematic, and that's something that we're committed to continuing to work on. This bill doesn't really address the plastic very much, other than funding the collection and getting it to the right place to get recycled. End markets for e-waste plastic are spotty sometimes, and so there is a chance that some of the plastic will need to end up in the landfill still. But that's something that the MPCA and our organization is really committed to trying to make e-waste plastic more circular and or reduce how much plastic is in our electronic waste. For example, computers with the casing that's aluminum. The aluminum is super, super recyclable and non-toxic, whereas the plastic is less recyclable. So replacing plastic with other material like aluminum in our electronic waste would be very, very helpful. But also removing the toxins. So PFAS and brominated flame retardants in the e-waste plastic really reduce the value of that plastic as a post-market material. So if we were able to reduce how much, and that's something especially on the federal level that would be really, really helpful, is if they were able to reduce how much of those chemicals are in our e-waste plastic, then it would be a lot easier and safer to recycle it. And there'd be more end markets for that material. But like today, we do have HP purchases recycled electronic waste plastic. So there are some end markets for it, and there is some circularity happening. It's not consistent, and sometimes the end markets go away for a short time and come back, and it can be spotty.
I think we have a couple more questions in the chat. So Mike would like to know, can you please repeat how you overcame the objections of Senator Friends and Senator Rest with this new legislation?
Yeah. So in the previous bill, we had a fee on certain items, like toys, for example, electronic toys had a 3% fee on them, and that's how they were going to fund the collection. And this year, everything is funded by producer responsibility. So the company that's making those e-toys is going to be paying for the collection costs, and it won't be a fee that is implemented by retailers. And so what that means is that folks like Best Buy and Target are going to not push back as hard on this bill as they did the previous version of it. And those were the folks that Frentz told me that he was listening to, and he was worried about the things that they brought forward. So with that change, we anticipate Senator Frentz will vote yes for the bill.